What's going on, guys? Boxing news. We got some good ones. And I'm going to do fight predictions live for you guys now, I think. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try something a little different. Rather than spending, 10 hours making a YouTube video, I think I'm just going to do some live streams on Wednesday where I just do live fight predictions. And we're going to go over some stats from them and kind of have more of a discussion about the fights that are happening this weekend, which we have two doozies this weekend. We have two really good fights. Not the best fights in the world, but still entertaining fights. And I think that'll be fun. Ganja Warrior, what's going on, man? So, as always with boxing news, we go from the lightest weight class to the heaviest weight class in news. We're going to have a discussion. Obviously, the main topic being what happened. Butter, what's going on, man? We're going to have some discussion, obviously. And we're going to talk about what happened with Tio. I think some of you will agree with me on my take on it, but we'll get there. For some U.S. fans to understand White when he speaks, because he has a really thick British accent, and trying to understand in his interviews might require a little doing for Americans. I don't think so. I think White actually has a pretty decent. I don't have a problem with it. We're gonna talk about Tio. We're gonna have a whole conversation. First thing I'm gonna talk about, though, we're gonna get into. The biggest news going on right now is at the lightest weight class. Is Miguel Berchelt coming up to 135. Is this a big deal? Is this not a big deal? Now, if you remember, Berchelt was kind of at 130, a weight bully. He was touted as a hard-hitting guy. He got opponents out there out of the ring pretty quickly oftentimes. And then he just got, perfect viral KO from Oscar Valdez, where he fell flat on his face and was completely knocked out. In that Berchelt fight, I think I actually thought in my prediction that Berchelt was going to win that fight. Broke dude, exactly. And that's the thing I think people are kind of sleeping on. Look, the KO from Oscar Valdez, was an incredible KO? Yeah. It absolutely is. Is his defense weak? Yeah. It's not the best. But he likes to push guys around. He likes to be aggressive. And this is where it gets interesting for me, him at lightweight. Is because there are some guys that are in this lightweight division that are younger that haven't had constant pressure put on them. Namely, Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia had one fight in his career where a guy used a lot of tactical pressure against, I should say, a lot of just pressure, not even tactical pressure, just a lot of pressure on him. And Ryan Garcia had a lot of issues. Now, granted, that was before he was with Eddie Reynoso. He was still under training with his dad. So, obviously I think he'd be better off, but it's been a year since he's been in the ring. Could this be something that would be a problem for him? Yes. Absolutely. I absolutely think Berchelt can give some of these young guys some issues. Absolutely could. Because his pressure style is really not fun. Because he hits hard. He's not like a Tank Davis where he's going to just knock you out with one punch kind of level, but he's going to hit you hard and he works the body really well. So I think this is kind of an interesting topic. I think it's kind of, I think a lot of people are going to sleep on him. I think a lot of people are just not even thinking about him anymore. But I thought it was news, and I think it's interesting in general to see what he does exactly, right? He hits hard. He comes at you. Let's see what he does. Let's see what he does at lightweight, because him coming up a couple pounds, it could be interesting. Does he get a little more power? Dana tested positive. LeBron tested positive. Everyone's testing positive. So now let's go up to lightweight, because there's more conversation at lightweight. And I think the main topic we obviously have to have discussion about, which is my kind of main topic in general, which is Teofimo Lopez losing. Now, Lopez losing is a couple things for me. Could we say that he's been exposed, right? Can we say that he's been exposed now, that like this whole takeover thing and all that, it's all a gimmick and everything like that? My biggest thing about this is that, number one, I think that Tio still is a talented boxer. I think he is a talented boxer. I think now we've seen a fight where when things get difficult, what happens? That's always my biggest question with guys, especially depending on their quarter, right? And during my Lomachenko fight prediction, I actually said, we're going to see what happens with him, but also his corner when things get interesting. Now, granted, Tio stored away a bunch of rounds in the Loma fight, and I think that helped him and his corner stay really cool, calm, and collected, right? So we got to see in this fight what happens when he doesn't have a bunch of rounds stored away. What's going to happen now? What does that mean? And honestly, I think the biggest part of Tio that got exposed is not that he's not a good boxer. He is a good boxer. He can be rusty. I definitely think that him taking so much time off, Triller doing that whole deal with Triller was a nightmare. Why they decided to go to purse bid instead of working through their promotional company with Bob Arum, I don't understand. But it came back to bite him in the ass. I think what this exposed, though, is he did not look ready for Kambosos. George went out there and Tio went out there, and Tio tried to get him out in the first round. We saw that. We saw him kind of rush, try to get that easy stoppage in the first round. Let his emotions kind of take over a little bit. Then he got knocked down, and the confidence started to slide. And George, to his credit, really stayed very consistent in this fight. He didn't push his work too hard. He didn't overextend himself. He fought really smart in this fight. Much smarter than I would have given him credit for before the fight started. Honestly, I was like, oh, this should be an easy fight for Tio. But you never know. This year we've had some big upsets. Let's see what happens. I thought Kambosos was going to lose this fight. And I was surprised, like everyone else, that Tio lost. I think what this exposed was not that, like I said, it's not that Teofimo Lopez is a bad boxer. He's not. He's not a bad boxer. I think it exposed that he might have issues in terms of being focused. His corner had issues. His dad yelling at him, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm, and then immediately contradicting himself, saying, you got to get this guy out of here. And it's like, you're giving really mixed signals in the corner. And if you guys know me, I like really simple corner instructions. Keep it simple, because if you're throwing a bunch of things at, especially young guys, you don't get a clear communication flow going with them, and they don't execute. That's something I saw that happen. The other part that tells me there's issues outside of the ring for Tio is his total vibe on social media changed. He went from being kind of like talking tough and kind of showing himself training, especially on like Twitter and stuff like that. It was always like him doing training videos, right? And I was like, wow, this guy looks huge for lightweight. And now it turned into him quoting Gandhi. It's like he went from like just being all business and like talking trash to just quoting and being like, be who you really are, and all this other like trying to be a philosopher on Twitter. And it's like his comment section for all his tweets were literally like, dude, when are you gonna fight? Like, people don't want to listen to you pontificate about the universe. They want you to fight. They want you to talk trash. They want you to show yourself getting ready for a fight. So that tells me he might have gotten a little bit full of himself. And I think him and his dad both felt like, we beat Loma, we're at the top of the mountain, right? We've done it. We need all this money. We need all this respect. We're on pound for pound lists. And rightfully so, they felt like they're untouchable for a little bit. This goes to show you just can't do that. You can't do that. Now, there's obvious delusion going on here because Senior and Junior both said that they are 100% sure that Tio won that fight. If you watch that fight, it's obvious that Tio won that fight, according to them. And what I have to say is the first thing that people say is, let's get Tio a new trainer. He needs to get away from his father. He needs to get away from his father immediately and get a different trainer. And I think the biggest thing, I'm just going to be honest with you, it's not going to happen. You know? It's not going to happen. And I know it's not going to happen because he posted this. Now, part of it I get. Like, look, it's your dad. Like, how are you going to just leave him after these years, all that stuff like that? I get that. And that's not easy. The comments of this were basically like, does anyone want to tell Tio that the wheels have fallen off right now? Does anyone want to tell him that the wheels have fallen off? And when you have someone like his dad who has his own mic during press conferences, who says a lot of stuff, you know, it's really hard. It's really hard. Facts like Sean Porter. I mean, yeah. Devin Haney is still coached by his dad, but there doesn't seem to be the same level. Lomachenko is trained by his dad, but his dad doesn't say almost anything, which is nice. We've seen this whole father-son pairing before. Danny Garcia. You know, like, we've seen this. This is not new. I think Ryan Garcia's dad just goes to show the kind of character he has to say, like, look, you're going to be better off with Eddie Reynoso. You know what I mean? After the fight, Senior taking pictures with George and his son sitting over there like, what the hell's going on? And he's like smiling and taking pictures with George and the belts and his, it's like, what is going on here? It's bizarre. It's bizarre. So it's not going to happen. It's just not. The aftermath of all this is that there's no rematch clause either. There's no rematch clause. So you're not going to get a rematch unless, for whatever reason, George Kambosos decides to do it. He's not. So it's bizarre. Like, it's so bizarre. And then the thing that really didn't help is afterwards, I see this. They're moving up to 140 and they're going against Josh Taylor. Going against Josh Taylor. I'm just going to put this out there. If you couldn't beat Kambosos, you're not even going to be able to deal with, not even remotely deal with Josh Taylor. Regardless of the fact that Josh Taylor's going up to welterweight. We already know that that's his game plan. You can't handle George Kambosos. You're not going to be able to handle, I mean, Regis Prograis is going to murk you. Like, there's no question in my mind. Regis Prograis is going to handle you easily at that weight class. There are some good 140 pounders. And if you think you're just going to beef up a little bit and you're going to be able to start dealing with that power, they get big at 140. They start getting big at 140. No way. You're not even going to be able to even come close to handling Josh. Jose Ramirez. Don't forget, Jose Ramirez did pretty well against Josh Taylor at the beginning. Regis Prograis did very well throughout the entire fight against Josh Taylor. And you think you're going to be able to beat either one of them, let alone Josh Taylor? There's no way, man. I'm sorry. This is La La Land kind of crap. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Teo versus Haney is not happening at lightweight. It's just not going to happen. It's going to happen at a weight class higher up. So, and then of course, what happens? I think the big thing is that we learned that George Kambosos is not an easy pushover. I thought he was going to be a lot easier pushover, but now everyone comes out of the woodworks and wants to fight him. Ryan Garcia is talking about it. Devin Haney's talking about it. And of course, our favorite fighter, our all-time favorite fighter here on this channel, Mr. Rolly, had to weigh in. And of course, he's getting that shot. He's, of course, the guy to get that shot. You know, he's perfect for it. Shrek, did I say that you get it if he wins or if he knocks him out? I thought I said knock him out, but I could be wrong. So, I mean, when you got Rolly Romero calling you out, you know, it's clear people think he's an easy target. Like, he's a soft target. It's one of those situations. Other people are weighing in. I don't 100% agree with this take. I think Tank, and I do think Loma would beat Kambosos. I think Ryan Garcia, it would be a good fight. Haney, we'll have to see how Haney looks this weekend, which we're going to talk a lot about Haney because I have some thoughts on this weekend with Jojo Diaz. So I don't 100% agree with this take. I think he's about at least 50% right. We'll see. Ryan hasn't fought in a year, so we can't really say that either. But it's obvious. Like, people think that Kambosos is a light touch. You know. Kambosos obviously wants all that smoke from Haney or Jojo Diaz. Could you imagine Haney loses this weekend and now our two top guys in 2 weekends go from Teofimo Lopez to and Devin Haney to Jojo Diaz and Kambosos? Like, how crazy would that be? It'd be absolutely nuts if that happened. And it could. I mean, it could happen. It could happen. As a Lomachenko fan, if you're Lomachenko right now and you're Papachenko, you're licking your chops. You're licking your chops because getting a fight with Kambosos just got a lot easier than trying to get a rematch with Teo. Can you imagine what happens? Think of the timeline. Look at the timeline. Loma is going to be fighting next weekend. Not this weekend, next weekend. It lines up pretty good to have that happen. It could happen. Lomachenko versus George Kambosos could happen next year. And what if Loma wins? He gets his belts back. Jojo versus Kambosos would be a great fight, I think. It'd be a very interesting fight. It'd be a way closer fight than some of these other matchups. So that's my thought with Teo. Has he been exposed? Has Teo been exposed? I don't think Teo's been exposed as a fighter. He is a solid fighter. He has real skill. He has real talent. I think we've seen that he's been exposed in the sense that maybe his corner isn't as solid as we thought with his dad. Maybe his focus isn't as, spot on as it needs to be. Not absolutely completely focused all the time on doing his job. I think he now has to really go backwards because he's not going to get a big title fight. There's no value in him anymore. You're not going to get a Josh Taylor fight. There's no value to you. Former champions hold very little value. very little value. So it's one of those things, man. And in terms of injury, how many people in the chat were talking about Tio being injured? Oh, well, he had a shoulder injury before the fight. Well, he had a shoulder injury before the fight. It's so interesting to me that Tio fans and people are saying that about Tio when literally those exact same people were saying Lomachenko is making excuses. Lomachenko went to the hospital, had surgery. There's video of it. There's like proof of it. Tio, if he had an injury and stuff like that, shouldn't have fought George Kambosos the same way Loma shouldn't have fought Tio if he had a bum shoulder. How interesting is that, huh? The same excuse that people have been saying for the last year that Loma is just BSing, Tio people are saying now. And I think it's so interesting, and I posted this on Twitter, the amount of people that were on social media saying, Tio doesn't need a rematch with Loma. He has nothing to prove. He beat him. There's no reason to have that rematch. They all got real quiet. They all gone. They all walked away from him. See you later. So, Timos is on his third fight option deal with Hearn. Ooh. He won't be fighting Loma anytime soon. That's true. Eddie will milk. Yeah, a pay-per-view. I mean, the market, I don't know the market for Australian boxing. Obviously, Joseph Parker. Jeffrey Horn was a big time. So I think you're probably right, Gonjour. He's probably going to have a couple easy fights. But let's see. I don't know. So it's like, it's very interesting to me how all of this has played out. Has it backfired? Absolutely. It absolutely backfired. That the trash talk, the kind of not focused, the kind of things you're saying beforehand and afterwards in terms of excuses, like it's bad. And the same people that were sitting there laughing at Loma thinking that he won or that it was a tie or that it was a close fight are now have Tio saying he won he won 10 rounds except for 2 of them. And it's just like, there's a problem there. There's a problem. I think we all have seen now that there's a problem with Tio, either mentally in terms of focus and not his ego getting in the way, as well as possibly his camp. And he's not getting rid of this. It's not happening. So anyways, after beating that dead horse. Yeah, exactly. Get a big bowl of cope right about now. Gonna move up and wait a little bit. And this is a fight that I know all you guys are super into. And like cannot wait for. I know I'm just like dying for this fight. Can't wait. They got him out of the retirement home and now they're going to be fighting, boys. 2012 called. It wants its fight back. Like, this is just, it's a last money grab fight for both guys. And it's just, I don't see a lot of people that really care about this fight all that much. There's going to be some people that really got to see this fight. But it's not me, Pay-per-view market in Aussie is similar to the U.S. prices. Oh, I didn't know that. They have 120,000 seater stadium. I mean, he is absolutely, you're right. There is some huge money there then. Absolutely huge money. Huge money then. Holy cow. So this fight's happening. It's happening in the UK where, thank God, it's happening in the right place. Because I heard rumors it was going to be in the Middle East. And I'm like, seriously? You already made both Khan fans and Brook fans wait this long for this fight. Now you're not going to put it in the UK? It was like brutal. It's going to be in the UK. I believe it's going to be in the O2. So it's one of those things. Do I care about this fight? Not at all. But it is news. And it'll be interesting to see how this goes. You know, I think that's going to be a little bit bigger hit with maybe some more UK casual boxing fans, you know. It's like, it's not for the most like hardcore boxing fans because they both know who both these guys are in terms of where they're at in their career. But, you know, it'll do okay with, you know, some of the fans that have been like, oh man, I haven't seen Amir Khan fight in a long time. Kell Brook, you know. I can't hate on it too much just because it's like, whatever. Get your last bit of dollar out of the sport and then leave. You know, that's fine. So this has been something. This article is not old. This is brand new. This is from December 1st. Bob's been saying this and playing this tune for a long time. A long time. And one thing that was interesting is that he is quoted saying that he's actually very fine with Bud Crawford going to other promotional companies. And I was like, you know, it's kind of shitty that Bob's been absolutely trashing Bud in terms of who he is, in terms of pay-per-view numbers and stuff. Allegedly, Sean Porter and Bud Crawford only did like 190,000 pay-per-view buys, or between 160 to 190 pay-per-view buys, which is not good. Not good. And Bob's like, I lose money every time he fights, mostly because Bud wants to be paid like a top-level boxer, which makes sense, you know. Crawford might be, I mean, being at a Mayweather, I bet you they could sell him better. Because I'll be honest with you, that Crawford is a marketable guy. There is a market there for him. He's not like he's a guy that's super quiet on the internet or anything like that. He says some stuff. He could definitely, if you market him right, you could do something with him. I firmly believe that. I feel like Bob has done the bare minimum. And I do mean the bare minimum with promoting his fights. I mean, I'm all over social media for boxing, and I don't ever see anything about his stuff in terms of promotion stuff. This goes to show you Bud Crawford has no problem telling people how he feels. You know? It's not like Bud doesn't say stuff that gets people riled up. You know? So it's like the guy's got a personality. Like a guy, I'll give you an example. A guy that doesn't have a huge personality would be like Michael Hunter doesn't have a huge personality. And I know people, especially I hear always people from like more the UK side be like, classic Americans like need him to be loud to like get attention kind of thing. And I would agree and disagree with that, generally speaking. You know, when people from the UK say that about America and like you got to be loud and everything, there's a reason behind that. It's not just to be loud for loud's sake. It's because you have to cut through the noise that is the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA. And the only way you're going to cut through that noise is if you're loud enough to do that. You can't be silent and quiet and this whole like, you know, very calm, cool, collected guy and get the attention you need in this market. It's just the way it is. That's why Tyson Fury does really well here. Like Tyson Fury has done pretty well with casual fans in comparison to someone like AJ. Right? So this, I think, is a good thing for Bud Crawford. There's obviously no love between him and Bob. Him and Bob don't like each other very much. Or I should say, they don't seem to have much affection for one another. You know? I have no idea. Sure. So it's one of those things. And I think the best for Bud is to find someone that's going to be willing to go out there a little bit and sell him. Sell him, give him a little bit more of attention, you know. They have too much success like Floyd does to Tank. I mean, yeah. Yeah, JD. I mean, he basically was like, I'm done losing money on him. I don't care if he goes to another. Like, okay, good. Let's get Bud someone else that will actually help sell who he is a little bit more and sell his fights a little bit. So I thought it was interesting. I think it's kind of interesting because the welterweight division's if you don't like the welterweight division, there's something wrong with you. It's just such a great division overall. There's so much talent there. So, moving up in weight class, we got to talk about one of my favorite boxers. And he always makes an appearance here on my weekly news program, generally speaking. And that is Mr. Boo Boo. And part of it is the things he says, the things other people tweet about him. It's just, okay. So, right after he won his last fight, it was a big, against Jason Quigley. It was like, okay, he wants Charlo. Like, that was the narrative. Like, he's got to fight Charlo. We got to get this fight done. Eddie's all about it. Boo Boo's all about it. Boo Boo and everyone else is going back and forth and talking trash about it and everything like that. And then we get some new news about who he's actually going to fight. Vaughn, what's going on, man? We get this news. And I'm just like, what the hell? And then I see it's a mandatory. And I'm just like, I don't know anything about this kid. I looked him up. He's a Kazakhstan boxer. So he's going to be like tough as nails and probably hits really hard. But it's one of those situations I see people being like, oh, well, Eddie talked to the WBO so he doesn't actually have to fight Charlo. And I'm just like, dude, I don't know about the conspiracy theory that we got Eddie over here whispering into the WBO's ear like, hey, Boo Boo needs to fight this guy who only has 11 fights. And it almost made me feel bad for Boo Boo for a minute. Shrek beat your grandma half to death while screaming, where are you at? So that's funny. So in general, though, we'll see how he does, because at least we don't have to hear about the Charlo talk anymore. It is already set in stone. Now, the fight that a lot of people are excited about, speaking of Charlo, I think everyone's excited about this, is the rematch everyone wants. I personally had Charlo squeaking out the first fight. No, he's no slouch. You're right. You're absolutely right, Vaughn. Absolutely. I know. I want to see Boo Boo elevated to that level too. Everyone wants to see this fight again. A lot of people feel like, Brian got robbed. I think that's a little bit of a exaggeration. I don't think he got robbed. I think it was a very close fight. And Vaughn, I remember you that night, I think, also agreed with me in the sense that Charlo won, but he squeaked it through. And it was more about quality over quantity in terms of work. And it was similar to me, and I think I brought this up during the live stream last time that during this fight, was it reminded me of, Katie Taylor and the Persoon fight, whereas especially the second fight, because Persoon was all over Katie Taylor, but the quality of the work was like very low. And Katie Taylor was landing cleaner, better shots. And it wasn't a robbery, in my opinion. I think this fight was incredibly close. So, yeah, a rematch, let's do it. Absolutely. I think Brian deserves the rematch. I think absolutely Brian deserves the rematch. But I see people saying like, oh, it was such a big robbery. I'm like, no, like that is not, we've seen some bad robberies. This was not that case that last time. It was extremely close. And I'm glad people get to absolutely, Steve, what's going on, man? Absolutely get to see this fight again, because there will be no, hopefully, close fight. It will be a definitive, this guy won compared to this guy. And we'll see who wins. I think it's going to be good. Okay. So now we're in that middleweight division. We're going to move up. And, of course, Callum Smith, baby, just wants another payday. And look, I would understand this rematch. At lightweight if Callum Smith won a single round against Canelo. And so it's like, this fight was so lopsided. When a guy's that much shorter than you and is out jabbing you. Exactly. You want payday. It's like Canelo was out jabbing Smith. That should never happen. Like, this fight was so lopsided. I'm sorry. Smith, you're not going to get this fight. Not going to happen. Yeah, exactly, dude. Broke dude, exactly. He was bullying. He was pushing him around. I understand that Smith, had an issue with his bicep and it was injured and everything like that, but it was not even close. So that's not going to happen. I did want to put it out there because Smith at 175 pounds is interesting. I think it's better suited for his size, but I just don't see him winning another belt. I just don't. So. This one, I think, is what a lot of people have been talking about with where Canelo's probably going next, and I think we all know why. Akubu, mandatory. I think that's a good rematch they should have. People have been saying that this is perfect because now Canelo can go to Bradis, which is the fight that he actually wanted to have, because it's kind of like one of those illusions where it's like, yeah, this guy that you don't really know or care about, I'm going to fight this guy now that's a little bit more mainstream. And you guys can be like, oh my God, this is so much better of a fight. This makes it that much better. And like, it's kind of one of those situations. I've heard that a little bit. I don't know. I honestly think that Canelo at this point in his career is making very calculated decisions in his fights. So if he's looking at cruiserweight, it's because he feels like it's weak. The same reason he went to light heavy against Kovalev. Kovalev was a drunken, beaten down shell of what he was when he was the real crusher. Now he was very receptive. He had a short span of time to get back in the ring after beating Anthony Yard, which he did very handily. I mean, he crushed Anthony Yard. So I don't know if he's actually going to do this, if he's going to offer him step aside money. I don't know how important it is, the opponent, as much as the new weight class for Canelo, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, I saw videos and photos of Canelo sparring with Frank Sanchez, who's a heavyweight, if you don't know. Kind of interesting overall. He's trying to beef up and try to deal with that kind of power. See what happens, because now you're not play. It's one thing to go from 160 to 168 and fight guys that really can't hurt you because they don't really have the power. Let's see what happens at cruiser, because all those guys at cruiserweight are going to hit harder than anyone at 168. So going from that, we'll go to heavyweight now, and then we'll do prediction time. Prediction time should be fun. So looking at now, of course, we got to go back to Bobby. Bobby always loves to talk about his favorite unofficial son. Thanks, Steve. And that is Mr. Tyson Fury. And Tyson fighting 3 times in a year. This is about as cap as it gets from Bob Arum. Tyson Fury is, there's rumors going around. I don't know how true it is. John Fury always likes to say stuff when he's, feeling good. That Tyson Fury had 2 beers in like the dressing room before he went out to fight Deontay Wilder. And I'm like, I don't know how much I believe that. Like, that's fine, whatever. But Tyson Fury's no angel outside of the ring. The tosser from Manchester. I mean, the idea, this is who Tyson Fury hangs out with outside the ring. He hangs out with guys like Joseph Parker, who's also known to be a party boy. Like, Tyson has some fun in between fights. So it's one of those things where I really believe that that's not going to happen. It doesn't look like White's going to get the mandatory shot that we hoped he would get. So who is he going to fight next? Well, of course, everyone wants one man. There's one man that everyone wants him to fight. And, I don't think it's going to happen. But they're really pumping this idea that like AJ is going to take step aside money. And it kind of came out like that's not going to happen. Apparently AJ said for like the right money he'd do step aside so Usyk could fight Fury. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And the number one reason I'm going to tell you it's not going to happen is right before the Usyk fight. I think sometimes people forget these things. Right before the Usyk fight, AJ signed a lifetime contract with Eddie Hearn. Yeah, the lawsuit, I saw that. AJ signed a lifetime contract with Eddie Hearn for the rest of his career. So you think that Eddie's going to go, oh, yeah, AJ, here's the idea. You just take a huge sum of money, you step aside, and then you have to wait over a year to try to go for your belts again. Mystic Eddie. I love that. There's no way in hell. If you have a chance, if you have any chance. Now, granted, I don't think AJ is going to beat Usyk. I did a video on that even. I don't think he's going to beat Usyk. But if you even have a chance of winning these belts back, why the hell would you take a chunk of cash to then wait well over a year? Because if you take the step aside, Usyk and Fury are going to do 2-fight deal at least. And that's not even if we have a third fight between them. And that means you're out of the ring fighting for those belts for at least a year. If not a year and a half. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong on this, but I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. So that kind of rumor about that happening, I just, sorry, I don't see it. There's just too much money involved to take a little bit of money when you could possibly make a lot of money. If instead AJ and Fury just have a fight in February, it's not like that insane of an idea. It is and it isn't. The reason it's not insane is because, yeah, it would sell like hotcakes. It'd be I mean, there's a reason that was such a palatable fight to begin with. It doesn't make sense if you're from the side of Bob Arum. And you have to look at kind of Tyson Fury's track record. He has a big fight. He has 2 easy fights. You know, like that's kind of his MO. You know? Like kind of his MO. So he doesn't really go from like big fight to big fight to big fight to, he just doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. There's too much risk involved. There's too much money involved. Bob is going to absolutely be like, hey, you know, you don't have to fight White. Why don't you fight Joe Joyce? Because he's just going to stand there and let you hit him. You know, like they're going to pick opponents that are, you know, go fight Robert Harlanius. Go fight Adam Kalnacki. Guys that you can just like wail on and that are going to be standing right in front of you and that cannot deal with you. Like they're going to pick guys strategically for Fury to fight if he doesn't get the Usyk fight right away. And he now doesn't have to deal with the mandatory of White. So it makes sense. It totally makes sense. Okay. Fight prediction time now. We're going to start the fight prediction time now with Haney versus Jojo Diaz. I think that fight is a little bit more of a closer fight. I got some thoughts on it. Let me know yours. So let's look at these two side by side. Let's look at some stats. Let's dig into it a little bit more. This is what I like to do. This is the fun part of kind of this stuff, is really looking at how these guys stack up and coming up with ideas about how it could all play out. So looking at them side by side, I mean, Jojo has a loss and he has a draw. His one loss was to Gary Russell Jr. Not a bad name to lose to. Not like he lost to a bum. And Jojo's, this is going to be his high. He's now fighting at lightweight, but a large portion of his career was lighter weight classes. So kind of interesting. I think that, you know, especially when we start looking at his age, being 29 years old, makes sense. Haney's still 23 years old. Looking at size, though, this is where things get interesting. Haney's going to have 3 inches taller than him. And the reach advantage is huge here. I do like the fact that Jojo is a southpaw, though. That could be interesting. Now, neither one of these guys, when you look at in terms of wins and KO percentages, neither one of them have a sparkling KO percentage. They're just not big KO guys. Haney had some moments in his very young career, early career, some good, you know, tomato cans he knocked out. Jojo hasn't really been knocking guys out, but he's been giving guys issues, and we're going to talk about why that is. So, looking at them side by side, in terms of game plan now, how would I go about it if I was either guy? If I'm Jojo, I like that Jojo's really, I don't know, if it's a chip on his shoulder or if he just kind of got this bad, I'm there to hurt you kind of attitude, like I'm a bad dude to be fighting against. And I like that about him. I like the fact that he doesn't seem, he's been in the ring with some good fighters. Kevin, you know, Farmer in particular, great win there. I mean, he's fought some good guys. He's been in some bright lights. And I think that is going to help Jojo in this fight. I don't think he's going to be nervous. And I don't think he's going to be worried about getting hit by Haney, which is a good thing. If this was Tank, totally different story. But Jojo, I don't think is going to be afraid to engage. And that means he could absolutely make Haney uncomfortable. It could happen. Haney, I think, does not like to be muscled and pushed around and made to be uncomfortable. So I love that he's willing to take this fight. I think he's shown that, you know, he's ready for it. I think he's absolutely ready for it. The big thing with Jojo is that reach advantage for Devin Haney is huge. I mean, that's a huge reach advantage. And I want to tell you why in a minute when I go to talking about Haney. That's a big reach advantage. You want to be on the inside if you're JoJo. Volume's going to be a big thing here. Don't worry about getting hit. Just get on the inside and do work. That would be my kind of general thing to JoJo. Rough him up. Make him uncomfortable. And we saw that. We saw that with Linares. Linares snuck in that very sneaky hand, that right hand on him. And what happened to Haney's legs? They went like jelly. Remember when he's walking back to his corner and his legs are doing a little dance still? There's question of Haney's chin. I don't know how much you can actually question Haney's chin. He got hit very clean and was not expecting and right on the button. That would be a bad idea to be on the inside if you're Haney. Now, I'm going to talk about what I would do if I'm Haney, and this is really kind of obvious. And that is, Haney looked like an absolutely fantastic boxer when he was boxing on the outside against Jorge Linares. He looked phenomenally good. His jab is the best jab in the lightweight division. I don't think there's a lot of people that can really debate that. He has a gorgeous jab. And when he doubles it up, it's even better. With this reach advantage he has over JoJo, it makes a lot of sense to work that jab. Stay on the outside. The first half of the Linares fight is an absolute perfect blueprint of what he should try to do against JoJo. But this is the problem with Devin Haney. I don't know who it was. I don't know who it was, and if it was his dad, if it was his ego, someone made the decision, you know what? Go in there against Linares and stop him. And start fighting on more mid to close range. And that's when his legs did the dance. And if he does that against JoJo, it's going to be a bad idea. And like I said, JoJo's not the hardest hitting guy, but he's there to scrap. He's there to make it an ugly fight. He's not there to try to outbox Haney and do this like, oh, I'm gonna sit there and let you jab. Now I'm gonna jab. That's not how this is gonna be playing out. It's not at all how JoJo wants this fight. JoJo's like, I want to be on the inside. I don't want to throw a lot of volume at you. I want you to be up against the ropes in the corners. I want you to be absolutely struggling to breathe in this fight. I'm gonna work your body, and then I'm gonna come upstairs, and I'm just going to absolutely frustrate you this whole fight. Haney, if he decides to take that bait and get his ego going and try to get on the inside and try to get the stoppage when it's not there, because we've already established Haney's power, either it hasn't come in or he just doesn't have it, he's going to be met with a very solid puncher and very solid boxer in Jojo Diaz. So this is one of those fights where it's like, when I first heard, I'm like, oh, well, Devin Haney should win this fight, right? It's kind of like the reaction I had when I heard, oh, Teofimo Lopez is fighting George Kambosos. Yeah, Teo should win this fight. Or when I heard initially, oh, yeah, Mikey Garcia is going in against this no-name guy, Santos. Never heard of this guy. Oh, Mikey Garcia should easily win this fight. Kind of like when I first heard like AJ versus Usyk. I'm like, oh, well, AJ should probably win this fight. All those did not. I'm not saying that we're going to have all these sides lose like back to back to back. But I am saying this has been a year of upsets. And not to mention, Oscar Valdez shouldn't have won his fight. That was a fight that no one saw coming. That should have been an easy fight. Like this has been a crazy year. So don't count out JoJo in this fight. It should be fun. It should be an interesting fight overall. Devin Haney needs to go in there, in my opinion, and just box. I know he wants to be that bad dude with the highlight reel of great knockouts. I am 100% sure that he is jealous of Tank Davis. If you look at Tank Davis's like highlight reel, it's pretty impressive. The dude's got like crazy power. He's got these beautiful knockouts. Like it's a great highlight reel. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hoping too, that they'll be more open or receptive to taking fights that are better fights overall for the fans. Who knows? It could go one of two ways. Either they get more open to it or they go the complete opposite. Because Taney being 23 years old, Tio being 23 years old, these guys can be put in hiding in these easy fights and build their career and their fan base back up for years. I'm hoping it's not going to happen like that. I'm hoping it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be, I mean, let's be honest. There's not many people like Lomachenko that loses a fight against Tio and then goes against Nakatani, and now is going after Richard Comey. Like, there's very few guys that do that kind of thing. Like, very few. The last time I remember being like, wow, that's kind of an impressive like thing to come back from and do. It was like when Earl Spence gets in the car accident and is like, I don't want a warm-up fight. I want Danny Garcia. And it's like, oh, shit. All right. You know? So let's see. I hope that you're right, though. I hope that these guys kind of like, okay, I lost my O. Let me get some real fights in. I got to build my rep back up. We'll see. Now, next fight is Tank versus Cruz. Oh, I would love the UFC if we had that mindset in boxing. I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. No question. The sport as a whole would be better if that was the mindset. So, second fight is Tank Davis versus Cruz. This was supposed to be Rolly. I actually think Cruz is a better fighter than Rolly. I know they were trying to pump this whole garbage narrative that Rolly Romero is a hard-hitting puncher. And I'm just like, since when? When did that happen? Oh, when he fought cab drivers? Yeah. He got gifted a fight against Martinez that he should have easily lost. Like, I never bought that. I never bought this whole idea that, like, Rolly Romero had any chance against Tank Davis. Like, zero. So this fight's actually a little bit more interesting. And I'm glad that, like, Tank is actually staying active. He's fighting at a weight class that I think is good for him. 135 pounds for Tank is good. And I'll show you why this is going to be interesting and why it's a good weight for Tank. Now, Cruz, right? The thing is, his loss and his draw, don't be mistaken by it, those were very early in his career. He's been on a winning streak for a while now. So it's not like he's coming into this off of a loss or a draw or anything kind of controversy. He's been winning for a while now. And what makes it interesting is look at the stats here between these two. Tank's 27, Cruz is 23. Height, they're virtually identical. Look at the reach advantage, though. If these reaches are actually true, Tank has a 6-inch reach advantage. And he's a southpaw. That, to me, is the biggest outlier. And this is why I like to look at this stuff, too. It's like, when you start looking at the stats, it's like, holy shit. For guys that are so close in height to have a 6-inch reach advantage at lightweight is crazy. And I double checked another website to check this reach advantage, and it agreed with it. So then I came down and I started looking at like wins and knockout. Like, Cruz is not a guy. He's almost 70% KO percentage. That's very respectable. Obviously with Tank, he has only one fight where he went the distance. So it is interesting. Pro rounds, I mean, they're not that far off, but it is interesting that Tank debuted so much earlier. So I thought you would appreciate that, Steve, by the way. That 6-inch reach advantage, I knew that would kind of like, that'd be something you'd be like, hold on a second. These guys are the same height and there's a 6-inch reach advantage. So what's the kind of general, what are you going to do here if you're Cruz and you're going against Tank? Well, one thing you got to hope for if you're Cruz is that Tank is going to have issues making weight. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't. I actually feel like Tank Davis is in probably the best place he's been in a long time. outside the ring, he seems like a very motivated, much more focused than he was. So I appreciate that. Like, I think that he seems like he's a little bit more on the straight and narrow. Obvious reasons that's needed. But let's say he's not hitting the weight that he needs to. That would be a huge advantage if he's weight drained. We saw against Gamboa in particular, where he just, like, his punch output just dropped off a cliff, and a very active fighter could have taken advantage of him that night. Of course, if you have a Gamboa with like 2 ruptured Achilles, that's not going to happen. But still, if someone came along that's 23 years old and does that classic go to war Mexican style that Cruz could do to him in a situation like that, it'd be a bad night for Tank Davis. The big thing for me about Tank is that we saw in his last fight in particular. I was always under the impression that Tank has some really good counter punches. His uppercut's fantastic. Great uppercut. And his power is obviously, you can't deny it. In my opinion, Tank has some of the best power out of any weight class. For the size he is, his power to size ratio is through the charts. I mean, it's off the charts. It's unreal. So when I saw in his last fight where he's like losing rounds, it's like not an easy fight for him. And I start seeing him implement game plan changes. You start to see him like get in there and implement clear strategy changes. I was like, hold on a second. It really impressed me. It showed that Tank Davis is much more well-rounded than what you would be led to believe based off his previous fights, where it's just like he just smashes guys. It's not that case. He's actually a very solid, has a decent ring IQ as well. I did not love, now this is the one thing I don't love about Tank in general, is Floyd Mayweather. Floyd going over to Tank's corner and yelling at him as if he's working the corner while his corner's trying to do their job. That right there is garbage. That should never happen. That should never happen. If you're Floyd, you stay the hell away from Tank's corner. You are not the cornerman. You're the promoter. Stay away from the corner. That part right there is where we could have issues with Tank in a fight that's very close. Because he's now having his corner say one thing, and then the next minute, he is getting something from Floyd. AK, you missed the entire segment for that. The whole segment on that was that we talked about, is he exposed? He's not exposed as in a boxer, but clearly he's exposed that he's not focused. He has corner issues. His dad giving him one thing, stay calm, and then immediately reverses it and says, you got to go after the guy. Like that was kind of the exposure, is that I don't think that T.O.'s as focused as he could be for that fight and should have been. I think it's obvious that his personality and his kind of ego got overinflated for that fight. That he starts quoting Gandhi on Twitter rather than showing videos of him working out like he used to. So that's the kind of like exposed part of it. Not at him as a boxer. He's a very solid boxer. I think just the focus and the corner and that kind of stuff kind of exposed that maybe obviously a lot of people feel like he should leave his dad. It's not going to happen though. So anyways, just to get you like up to speed a little bit about that, because I know that was like the thumbnail on YouTube. So I want to make sure that you get that piece. So with Tank, that's the one thing that really concerns me. Who's calling the shots in Tank's corner? If a fight's not going well or it's a competitive fight, who's calling the shots? Is it Floyd? Because it shouldn't be Floyd. If Floyd wants to be in the corner and calling the shots, he needs to be the actual cornerman, not sitting on the side in some ridiculous hoodie. Like, that's not what should be going on, and then running up to the corner in between rounds and yelling at Tank. That just shows like there's needs to be clear boundaries. The other side of it is I'm always concerned about, what happens if Tank outside of the ring loses that focus again. I like that he seems focused right now. If he loses it again and he gets in more trouble, it's gonna be a problem for him possibly. Because as we saw, Tank is not a spring chicken anymore. He's 27 years old. And the biggest thing about Tank, in my opinion, he needs to stay the hell out of Baltimore. Because that's where he gets in trouble. This whole hit and run thing where he has 17 charges right now, which is not an easy thing to do. To get 17 double-digit charges is not the easiest thing to do. Tells me you need to stay the hell out of Baltimore. If you were 22 years old and you're making dumb decisions, that'd be one thing. You're getting close to almost 30 years old, Tank. It's time to just say, look, I get that your buddies or maybe friends or family are in that area. You just got to start, doing FaceTime with them and Zoom calls. Or if you go there, you need to, the classic saying in sports, nothing good happens after midnight. Nothing good happens after midnight for athletes. Never. Nothing ever happens that is good for professional athletes after midnight. How do you get 17 charges? Okay. He was in Baltimore celebrating his birthday. So he was at a club. He gets drunk. He jumps in his Lamborghini SUV, which, mind you, that is not a car that I think a lot of people in Baltimore have, or in this country in general. He drives down this, not that far from the club, runs a red light, hits a car, and he then runs into a fence. He jumps out of the car and leaves the situation. I believe that is like all that happened then. But that's basically it. So that is basically why I'm like so nervous about him. The Tank could even reach the pedals. That's my biggest fear for him is the thing is, I don't say that about fighters that I don't really care that much about. I really care about Tank. Like, I think he's such a talented guy. He has this crazy power. And it's just like, you're going to screw it all up. You're going to screw all of it up by making dumb decisions. And I hope he doesn't. I just hope he doesn't turn into an Adrian Broner. Absolutely, AK. I mean, there's very few athletes that ever go to jail and then come out and are like Michael Vick might be the only case where I've been like, okay, he was actually pretty good after coming out of jail, but like there's very few. Can Tank ride roller coasters? Lambos and boxers don't mix. They really don't. Yeah, I know it's all kid, right? So that's kind of like the huge thing here, man. I have my doubts about Tank, but we spoke on 24/7 thing. He looked like he was so much more mature. Jay, I was just saying that. Kind of made you forget about the DUI stuff. Yep. I really think, Jay, like I was saying, he's seeming like he's put together right now. He seems like he's focused outside of the ring, and that's the only thing I think that could be that. And if it's a close fight, like I said, now 50 times, Floyd running up to the corner and screaming at him, "Do this, do that." And corner's like, "Well, what the hell am I doing here?" So that's basically it for the news and prediction today. Anyone have any other topics they wanted to address or talk about? One thing I did want to bring up. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. I think it's a pretty big deal. I'm sure some of you will be like, you don't really care. I did not hear about that at all, Tall Kid. Eddie, what's going on, man? So quick little thing that's kind of cool, man. It's yeah, at this point we can go off boxing related now that I've done like an hour of boxing news. But so yeah, Eddie, the thing we talked about is like as a boxer, not so much as a, but his corner and everything, it like needs work. Like his dad clearly all that kind of stuff, like not being focused, kind of taking the fight for granted. That kind of got exposed as a, Anyways, speaking of streaming and kind of Twitch and all that stuff, speaking of YouTubers, apparently we got a new one. And the only reason I bring this up is because people always ask me, like, hey, why can't I subscribe to you on Twitch? And it's because I don't have I could have a Twitch deal, but I don't. And it's because I want to stream on multiple platforms. And this is why. So Ludwig is leaving Twitch. He leaves all his subscribers behind there. I'm sure a large portion of them are already following him on YouTube. But this is pretty big for YouTube streaming. They got Tim the Tat Man, you know, now they got Dr. Disrespect, and now they got Ludwig. Like, they're getting some big people. So if you ever wonder why, he does long streams, and he oftentimes will do extreme kind of like, he'll do like game shows and stuff like that. He does some really interesting stuff. So thought I'd just kind of throw out there as kind of something in. List of fighters involved in car crashes: Spence Davis, yeah, Sanchez. I'm sure there's way more. I mean, Tyson Fury almost was with his Ferrari. Almost was. I'm sure Mike Tyson's been in a few fender benders. You know? Yeah, see it like, I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more. Fury versus Jake Paul prediction. I'll do that. Let me get a graphic for it. Oh, I'm going to be streaming the shit out of that fight. All right, here we go. I got the perfect graphic for it, actually. I got the perfect graphic. So we're going to talk about it. This is where I'm sure Tall Kid, you're going to get probably pretty heated. Kidding. We'll do a little chit chat about it. I do have actually a video I want to show you guys pertaining to this, and I thought you guys would love it. And I was like, oh, I got to have that for stream. So look at this. Let's look at the stats. All right. 22, 24 in terms of age. Height, basically the same. Fury does have some more reach there. Tiger Woods too did get, yeah, he did as well. In terms of knockouts, Jake actually has the edge here. So, see, I knew Tall Kid would know the answer to this stuff. I'm going to say overall, at first when I heard this fight, I was like, oh, well, Tommy Fury should win. And then we did it on stream where I went through all of Tommy Fury's opponents on BoxRec, and they are garbage, as the French would say. Garbage to an unbelievable level that I had no clue that his opponents were that bad. Now, Jake Paul doesn't exactly have a shining resume either. I'm not saying he has like the best fights ever. But it did make me go, this fight is not a massive lopsided fight if you look at it on paper. We won't know until it actually happens. But in all actuality, it's like you could take any one of Tommy Fury's opponents, and I bet you Tyrone Woodley would beat them. To Tall Kid's point. Like, you see, Jay, I know. It's bad. Like, his opponents are, I know he only has 7 fights, so everyone's always like defending it like, well, you know. I'm like, no, I get it. I get that guys don't fight top level individuals when they've only had 7 fights. A lot of people have garbage people that they fight. But you know, it does make it a little bit, it makes it, I should say, it's a more fun fight than I expected. It's way more fun than I thought it was going to be. So, for Tommy, I mean, he needs to win this fight. He needs to win this fight. And if he doesn't, oh my goodness. It would be pretty incredible if he didn't win the fight, in a way. Because the one thing that is fun about Jake Paul winning is just the absolute amount of just people that are not only just heartbroken by it, but the level of just absolute rage is unreal. Okay, you guys ready? I saw this today on Twitter and I just about died laughing.
Right, Tommy, come on, we're practicing your trash talk, and we all know these Americans love to trash talk.
Right.
Take your microphone.
Come December 18th, my friend, you're getting knocked spark out.
Get up, you chummy. That was good. You've got to sound more like Tyson. You've got to really go for it.
You're living in your brother's shadow. End of the day, I'd knock you out clean. You're way out your depth, my friend.
Hit on him now, boy. Go on. Go on, get it stuck into him, Tommy.
December 18th, I'm knocking you spark out, and I'm doing you some serious damage.
Go on, Tommy, get stuck into him now.
December 18th, I'm knocking you spark out, and I'm doing you some serious damage. I'm going to knock you square stiff. I'm going to pound you and ground you into the earth. Do you understand, my friend?
Come on, yeah. Proper lay into him. Come on, tell him. Say something real nasty, like a proper man. Real horrible. And if you're ever in Miami and you see his girlfriend, you can bend her over and do it like a dog. Political bastards. That's a lot of them. No. I don't care. I don't care if it's inappropriate. I don't care. I'll do it like a dog and we'll suck all their dicks. Get them sucked. Jake Paul, you sloth. Dosser.
It's the impression of John Fury, man, that just gets me with that. And it's just like, it's just the trash talk side of it. It's the whole spark out thing. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that it's perfect. And I think the funniest part about it, all of this, like this little sideshow, is how accurate it is that John Fury and Tyson Fury are selling this fight more than Tommy is. But a British accent, I can't take it seriously. It's everything about it. Jay, I love that. It's too funny though. Jake Paul is taking PEDs thing was debunked. I don't ever give a crap about that because the thing is, Tall Kid, if you don't think Tommy Fury takes PEDs, it's not like Billy Joe Saunders and Tyson Fury, both guys in the same camp, tested positive for PEDs. It's not like Tommy Fury's half-brother didn't test positive for PEDs. Anyone that does that crap, I'm just like, are you like serious right now? It's like, you do realize who you're talking about. Oh, I gotta get up, Shrek. I'm getting it right now. it's like you don't really have much of a leg to stand on with that kind of case. Because it's so clear that either one of these guys, I'm like, I don't get your point, really. If you're sitting there trying to be all high and mighty about this, it's just like, oh, Tommy doesn't do that. What? Anyways. So, let me make sure I get this. Okay. What is this? What is this? Jake Paul, Logan Paul, Mike Tyson Fury training Tommy. Oh, God. Well, this will be interesting.
Really happy with myself as a trainer, happy with how things went this morning as a coach. Good morning session. Jake, how are you feeling?
Feeling good, feeling good, and I'm
Right,
ready.
right. And what's going to happen to Tommy Fury?
I'm eating his ass in 2 rounds. I mean,
What'd you say?
I'm beating his ass
That's
in 2
right.
rounds.
That's right, he is.
Okay. Okay. I gotta see that again. That was funnier than I expected.
Really happy with myself as a trainer, happy with myself as a trainer, happy with how things went this morning as a coach. Good morning session. Jake, how are you feeling?
Feeling good, feeling good, and I'm
Right,
ready.
right. And what's going to happen to Tommy Fury?
I'm eating his ass in 2 rounds. I mean,
What'd you say?
I'm beating his ass
That's
in 2
right.
rounds.
That's right, he is.
Okay. Okay, come on. You don't have to like the Paul brothers, but they can be pretty fucking funny. They're not my favorite people in the world, but geez, man. They know how to use social media extremely well. Extremely well. And they know how to get people to get riled up. All right, just for shits and giggles, we're going to do it one more time. We're going to sit there and we're going to look at Tommy Fury's beautiful, unbelievable record and the opponents he's fought. Because it's just, it gets me every time. Marketing and stealing people's money with NFTs. They're also pretty good at snatching people's hats, apparently, too. So, this is his last opponent. Actually, I'll start at his first opponent, and then we'll go to his last opponent. Okay. This is the first opponent Tommy Fury fought. This is his first opponent as a pro boxer. The man has 10 wins total and 113 losses. Yeah, quality. Second opponent, let's see how he's doing. Moving on up. 0-30. Yeah, quality. My favorite's when people are like, well, Tommy Fury's at least fought real boxers. That's arguable. Not really. 2-31. Third opponent. Awesome. His first 3 opponents have like a record. I'm trying to do the math off the top of my head of something like 160 losses or something like that, and 12 wins. 12 wins. 0-24. Steve, you need to get pro because you could get one of these big money fights and easily do better than this. Easily do better than this. Oh, 0-20. Jordan Grant, 3-1. The first winning record. Oh, it was 113 losses. Yeah. First person he ever fought. Next, 2-2. That right there is the total body count of Mr. Tommy TNT Fury. So, this is why it's important to remember how trash some fighters are. And they can be pro boxers and have a 7-0 record, and this is the quality of opponents that they've fought. Now, mind you, also with that, look at how he did against them overall. Because you're like, dude, 7-0 against guys like that? He should be able to crush these guys, right? Nope. His first opponent, who has 113 losses and 10 wins, he went to points. Couldn't get him out of there in 4 rounds. Second opponent, he won by a first-round KO. Third opponent, first-round KO. And for some reason, he went to 6 rounds and then back down to 4 rounds, which doesn't make any sense at all. And then he has a second-round KO, points, and then unanimous decision. Yeah. Talk about pure power with a 57% KO percentage. So, I'm not someone that's like the biggest Paul stan over here. I'm not sitting here being like, oh man, I love the Paul. But I'm not an idiot. And Tommy Fury could lose. He could absolutely lose. Do I care who wins? Not really. They both annoy the hell out of me. I think that regardless, it's kind of just a dumpster fire that you just gotta watch. Sorry, wrong tab. The dumpster fire, and you just gotta like let it go. Just go, you know what? I'm not here because I'm gonna watch the highest level of boxing right now between Tommy and Jake. But it's a dumpster fire, and I can't turn away from it. You know. And I think, look, if you guys have been here during my live streams during any of the Paul brothers fights, you know how I am. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to hang out and talk trash to all these people while I drink beer. That's it. And if you take this fight super serious and get like really, really into it, that's fine. Just know I'm going to make fun of it to a degree. And I will make fun of both guys, not just one of them, both of them. Because it's hilarious. And we have so many fights that should happen, that don't happen. And we get this fight, which is actually like a fight that is been talked about for so long. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing that we can get Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury before we can get Spence versus Bud. Before we get Crawford and Spence to fight, we get Tommy Fury and Jake Paul somehow. It's impressive. I don't know how it happened, but it did. You know? Jake Paul got in. John Fury said, I don't know if there's a lot to get in there, though, Paul Kid. there's not like a huge amount of, I mean, there's a lot of room in there. I just don't know how much you're going to be messing with John Fury's head. You know, he's taking a lot of blows to the head himself. Has a better shot of an upset. Davis versus Cruz or Haney versus Diaz? Good question, Jay. I would say I think Jojo Diaz has a better chance to beat Haney than Cruz does to beat Davis. And the reason I say that, Jay, is because Tank Davis has that one get out of jail free card with his power. Like in his last fight where it's like, man, you're down on the cards. You're going to lose this fight. Okay, I'm just going to knock him out. You know? They'll make fun of me. I go to the Upper Midwest Great Lake Championship. Oh, God. Exactly, Steve. Sure, they'll do the same to me. But that's my biggest thing. Is like Devin Haney doesn't have that get out of free jail card. If he starts losing rounds and he gets down on the cards, which is going to be tough because, you know, it's DAZN. But if it does happen, Jojo Diaz doesn't have to worry about a heat-seeking uppercut missile like Cruz does from Tank. That's my big thing. Is I really think that would probably happen. And you have 12 rounds to try to knock out the guy. Haney has got to do a little bit more breaking down and just try to outbox. And as we saw, he can get hurt. There's been questions about his chin. I don't know how much you can question or not. Boots Ennis to fight Crawford next. It's a little bit of a tall order to fight Crawford. After the way Crawford looked in that last fight, I would be a little bit nervous throwing Virgil Ortiz or Boots to Crawford. And don't mind you, I love both fighters. Love both fighters. If you're directing Boots Ennis, you want to see Crawford kind of like lose a step. Crawford's now, I believe, 9 fights in a row with stoppages or TKOs. So the power's still there, and Crawford still has the skills. Obviously, Sean Porter had some good rounds, but I don't know if I believe Ennis can beat Crawford yet. I think Ennis can absolutely. I mean, I love the way he's fighting and who he's fighting. I think he's fighting the proper amount of guys that are at that high level or becoming a true kind of contender for the belts. So I think it's very possible. Max, what's going on, man? You know? Yeah. I think, you think Cruz looks hungry and that could maybe beat Davis? I wouldn't put my money on it, but it's possible. I mean, Jay, it's certainly, I mean, as we just saw last weekend, I mean, we've seen this year, anything is possible when you fight competitive fighters. Anything's possible. I would say Haney gets in trouble probably sooner before than I think Tank would, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Been a little while since, I mean, the Linares fight, is that this spring? Can't remember. So, only Crawford fight we want to see again. Yeah, Spence. Absolutely. You bet your account on Cruz. Actually, that's a great point, Max. That brings up a great video I just thought of that we should watch. And it's all about that. So why don't we do that? Perfect idea. We'll do that. Because why not, right? Watch a little Rummy's Corner. Talking all about Spence Crawford. Yes, please. I don't know how many of you guys have seen this, but Rummy's Corner always does a great job.
Is Rummy's Corner. With 2021 drawing to an end, the big-time welterweight showdown between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford still hasn't come together. But perhaps 2022 will be the year that these two undefeated welterweight kings will finally square off. How did we get here? In May 2017, Spence challenged IBF welterweight world champion
That was a great fight, the Kell Brook fight.
It was a strong effort from Spence, who broke Brook down physically and mentally. Spence unloaded on Brook in round 10, which caused the champion to take a knee. In the following round, Brook voluntarily took another knee and was unable to beat the
that orbital
count.
bone was
It was
broken,
an 11th
baby.
round knockout, and Errol Spence Jr. was the new IBF welterweight champion. In August 2017, Crawford put his unified WBC WBO Junior Welterweight Championship on the line against undefeated unified IBF WBA champion Julius Ndongo. It was a battle for undisputed supremacy at 140 pounds. Crawford dropped Ndongo in round
Crawford's
2,
timing is
and then
so
he scored
good.
a knockout in round 3.
Dox
Crawford
myself.
earned the undisputed junior welterweight world crown, and this was his last bout in the division. In January 2018, Spence defended his IBF title against Lamont Peterson. It was another strong performance from Spence. He dropped Peterson with a nice left in round 5,
I mean, the
and
power.
Peterson beat the count. Spence resumed his pressure attacks in methodical fashion. Peterson's corner stopped the fight just as round 8 was about to begin. In June 2018, Crawford challenged WBO welterweight champion
Jeffrey
Jeff
Horn.
Horn. Crawford proceeded to thoroughly
crushed the
outclass
shit
the
out of Horn,
champion.
too.
Try as he might, Horn was unable to deter the skills and firepower of the challenger. Bud dropped Horn with a nice sequence in round 9. Horn beat the count, and Crawford unloaded on him, which prompted the referee to stop
Look
the
how
fight.
accurate
Crawford
Bud is
was
right
the
there.
new WBO welterweight champion, and Crawford had become a 3-division champion. A week later, Spence put his IBF belt on the line against Carlos Ocampo. Spence made quick work of Ocampo. He drilled him downstairs, Ocampo went down, and he did not beat the count. It was the second title defense for Spence, and with Crawford having just won the WBO the previous week, fan
Everyone
interest in a
wanted them to
unification bout between Spence and Crawford was quickly on the rise with growing demand. In October 2018, Crawford put his
believe
WBO
we've been
belt
waiting
on
like
the
3 years
line
for this
against
fight.
Jose Benavidez Jr. Crawford utilized outstanding ring generalship to dictate the pace and control the action. Near the end of the 12th and final round, Crawford nailed the challenger and sent him down with a crisp combination.
Oh, my
Benavidez
goodness.
made it to his feet, but Crawford was all over him, which prompted the referee to wave it off. It was a 12th round technical knockout for Bud Crawford. In March 2019, Spence put his IBF belt on the line against Mikey Garcia. This wound up being a dominant performance from
What do I think about them denying Ugas a fight against Spence? The only reason I'm okay with it, is they're talking now about Virgil Ortiz fighting Ugas, and I love that fight. I think that's a better fight. I think it's unfair to Ugas, but I think it's a better fight in terms of it's a closer fight. I think Spence versus Ugas isn't that close of a fight. Purely because Ugas lost to Sean Porter. He's not going to beat, I don't think Ugas is going to beat Spence. So, Virgil Ortiz fight is a more interesting fight against Ugas, in my opinion. I think Spence definitely beats Ugas. So it's just, in terms of that sense. I do think it's unfair that he didn't get it, though.
Spence, where Garcia was unable to cope with the jab, the skills, and the size of the champion. At the conclusion of 12 one-sided rounds of action, Spence was awarded a unanimous decision, winning all 12 rounds
Yeah, that was a
according to
bad
all
beatdown.
3 judges scoring the fight.
Bad
The following
beatdown.
month in April, Crawford put his WBO title on the line against Amir Khan. Crawford dropped Khan in the
Khan.
opening round and never looked back. Early in round 6, Crawford hit Khan with an accidental low blow, and after receiving
Amir
time to
Khan
recover,
faked.
Khan's corner informed the referee that he would not continue. It was a technical
quit.
knockout for Crawford in round
Which
6,
was so
and this
pathetic.
was the second welterweight title defense for Bud. In September 2019, Spence put his IBF belt on the line in a unification bout against WBC champion
last
Sean
chin.
Porter. This was a close and
That was a good
competitive
fight.
encounter
John
where
Porter
Porter
versus
jumped
Spence.
out to a good start. Spence maintained his composure and began going to work, and he was grinding it out with some nice body work. In round 11, Spence landed a booming short left that caused Porter to touch down. He survived the knockdown, but after 12 engaging rounds, Spence was awarded a split decision victory. Spence was now the unified
closest we've
IBF
seen Spence to
WBC
losing.
welterweight world champion. A couple of weeks later, Spence
Car
was
crash.
involved in a serious car accident that left questions about his future in boxing.
I remember when that happened. I'm like,
In
oh
December
my God.
2019, Crawford put his WBO belt on the line against
That's so
Egis Kavalauskas. It was another solid effort from
Bean machine.
Bud. Crawford dropped the challenger in round 7 and then twice more in round 9. And after
I've
the
gotten
final
his- has
knockdown,
gotten his
the
overall
referee
parole.
stopped
Broke it like 10
It was
times.
a 9th round technical knockout for
Triple
Crawford.
G did
So at the
a
end of
number on it. I don't think it's ever
2019,
been the same.
Crawford had made 3 title defenses of his WBO welterweight belt, and Spence was the unified IBF WBC welterweight champion
Never been the
who had
same.
made 4 defenses in total. But Spence suffered a setback because of the accident. And then a few months later, COVID-19 essentially brought the boxing world to a halt.
Yep.
In
And
November of last year, Crawford put his WBO belt on the line against
Crawford.
Kell Brook. In round
Fuck
4,
Brook.
Crawford drilled Brook with a snappy short right
Oh
that
my
sent him
goodness.
stumbling into the ropes, which
That
held
was
him
such a
up. The
beatdown.
referee began his count, the action resumed, and Crawford swarmed in for the finish, which prompted the
couldn't
ref
believe how
to wave
badly
it off.
he beat the
It
crap
was
out
a
of Kell
4th
Brook.
round technical knockout
Like, that
for
was
Bud.
bad.
In December of last year, Spence put his unified IBF WBC championship on the line against Danny Garcia. This was the first time Spence was back in action following his car accident. Spence used his jab to control the action.
That car
and
crash-
he was
yeah, it was an
effectively
insane
applying
car
pressure.
crash.
It was a workmanlike effort
Full-time
for
driver or
Spence
at least an
against
Uber.
a
I
tough
know,
and
I know,
talented
Jay.
boxer in Danny Garcia. After 12 rounds of action, Spence was awarded a unanimous decision. This was title defense number 5 for The Truth. Earlier this year, Spence was scheduled to have a mega bout showdown
I'm
against
so
Manny
glad Manny
Pacquiao,
Pacquiao did not have
but
that fight.
Spence had to withdraw from the fight because of a retinal tear. Pacquiao instead challenged WBA super duper
Ugh.
champion
Track, it's your
Yordenis
favorite fight.
Ugas. Ugas defeated Pacquiao by 12-round unanimous decision. And then just last Saturday, Crawford defended his WBO belt against Sean Porter. Porter started the fight fast and was having some early success. But after a few
God, that was
rounds,
such a
Bud
good fight.
began making adjustments. And he continued making adjustments where his timing was steadily improving. In round 10, Crawford bombarded Porter with a sweet left. Porter beat the count, but he was soon down again, which prompted his corner to
I really
stop
think
the
Sean
fight.
Porter kept
It
on-
was a
coulda kept on
10th
fighting.
round technical knockout for Crawford. So here we are. Crawford and Spence are both undefeated.
Yep.
They are both in their 30s. They are both arguably in or close to prime form at the weight. And they are both champions who have made 5 successful title defenses at 147. You have 2 contrasting styles that can potentially make for
I know,
an
Rami, we
epic
need it
blockbuster
bad.
showdown. Boxing fans have wanted this fight for a number of years already, and for various reasons it just never came together.
I just hope it
But the
doesn't
clock
turn
is
into a
ticking.
Floyd versus
Right
Pac-Man
now,
situation.
the fight is still one that would have tremendous significance. But
Or
Spence
Brooke versus
and
Khan.
Crawford need to seize the moment sooner than later if they want this to happen when it still matters as much as it does right now. Will the fight happen in 2022? I sure hope so. In theory, there might be less obstacles in the way now than there were previously.
I would say
but
so.
unfortunately, the biggest fights that fans want to see do not always come together. And sadly, there are countless examples of this in boxing history. Hopefully, Spence and Crawford will make it a reality next
Shrek,
year.
have a good one.
One can hope. So do you think we will see Crawford versus Spence in 2022?
I don't know if we're going to see that fight. I want us to. I really, really want us to. But as boxing has taught us time and time again, just because you want it doesn't mean you're going to get it. And that's just the way it is. You know? It sucks, but it's true. And I think that this would be the perfect time. This would be the perfect time for it to happen. With Bob kind of being out of the way, I think we could say it could happen. But Shrek. UFC do better at giving us good fights. That's not true. I would say they're more consistent. The UFC is more consistent, especially in recent years. So that's where I agree with that. That said, some of the best fights are when we get them from boxing. Some of the best fights are definitely big boxing fights. You know, for sure. It's not like the UFC doesn't perform though. The UFC does a really good job overall. And I feel like this year we had a real bounce back year. Thankfully. Because that was a big problem, is that like for a couple years we weren't really getting huge fights that we needed or wanted. And it was like, come on, man. We need these fights. At lightweight, less bouts, yeah. Oh yeah, we'll be streaming during the Haney versus Diaz fight. We'll be doing that as well for Tank versus Cruz. We're definitely gonna be doing that. 100%. There's no way we can't. They're going to be too good of fights to not watch. You know? Oh, who knows? We won't know. I mean, we'll see how it. That's the one thing about boxing. It will break your heart time and time again. And of course, we keep coming back like suckers over and over again. It's kind of hard not to, though. You know? All right. So, if you are on Twitch, I think it's time that we end the stream about here. Go say hi. We're going to do a quick raid. If you're not on Twitch, you should follow me on Twitch. If you're not on YouTube, you should follow me on YouTube. But we're going to do a quick raid, so go say hi. Show them some love. Say hi from Glove Talk. And I will see you guys on Friday for Classic Fight Night. Still don't know who we're going to pick for that night. So, let me know what you guys think.